if you want. They're like, well, how do I know whether it's cleared? I'm like, I don't know on your system how you know whether it's cleared or not. Well, they took it from my account. I said, well, you technically wrote a check, I just don't know whether or not it's cleared. And they're notorious when they do bill pay, I'm putting it 698 Pacific Way instead of PRS. So they
15 seconds.
go back. No, oh, no. Yeah.
You might want to set that up.
Recording in progress.
All right, this is a February 12th special city council meeting called to order. Is there any declaration of conflict of interest from any of the members?
No.
No. All right, we're gonna move on since the planning commission has a meeting immediately after, sometime after us. Oral or public communications, written and oral. Oral public comment, anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgearhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. All right. We don't have any written correspondence. All right. We don't have any late written correspondence. We do have one person who signed up to speak. And Robert, will you state your name and your address, please?
Yes, councilors, staff, pleasure to be with you again. Name is Robert Morey, 271 D Street, Gearhart, Oregon. I want to speak on one item, and that is making sure the community has disclosure on who's representing us in this real estate transaction. So we make sure we've got competent representation. Right now, we have no idea who's representing our community. The concern I have is we have a refreeze of what we had happen with the last land transaction through inexperience or error. Stuff was just plain misrepresented to the community. So, like to know, I don't understand why we can't be clear about who represents us. And once we have a transaction, since it can be paid out of the funds of this bond, we should be able to understand that real estate transaction that was negotiated. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no hands raised. Anyone on the board? Seeing no hands raised, we'll move on. Our only business tonight is ordinance and resolution. It's resolution 1011. A resolution of the city of Gearhart, Oregon, calling a measure election for general obligation bonds. All right, Chad.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight, my goal is to simply provide some clarity. I want to walk through the scope of the $10 million proposal and the 3 financing options available to the council. It's not about advocating for a specific term tonight, but you folks will have a decision to make about that. It's also about understanding the trade-offs between the costs and the total interest and making sure we're all working from the same information. Online, we provided 16 pages, which has a lot of details about this project. It also has the synopsis and resolution number 1011. Also tonight, I handed out to you some clarifying information. And it's listed, there's I think 3 parts to this. There's the Gearhart Public Safety and Facilities Project overview. The next page is, or the 2 pages back from that is information on terms and cost comparison for the bonds. And then the The last page on there is just a very simple document showing some draft concept ideas for the project. I'd like to go through this packet that I handed out today. The audience has a version of that as well. And then we will also post that online after the meeting as well. Does that sound okay to everybody? All right. So the city of Gearhart has identified health, safety, and operational deficiencies in its public safety and municipal facilities. These deficiencies include aging building systems, limited functional space, and code-related upgrades necessary to maintain safe and effective operations. This $10 million project focuses on improving existing buildings and constructing a new public works facility on the current City Hall fire station site. This is not a new campus project. It is focused effort to improve safety, functionality, and long-term usability of the city facilities. What's important is what the project includes: fire station improvements, basic seismic strengthening of existing structure, very basic, mechanical exhaust system to remove diesel fumes, heating system upgrades and apparatus bays, electrical and plumbing upgrades, remodeling of the training room and kitchen, creation of office and bunk spaces, addition of restroom, shower, and decontamination areas for personnel and equipment, exterior lighting, security, and facade repairs. That's pretty well the scope for the fire station. These improvements address aging systems, space limitations, and operational needs within the existing building. And as clarification, this project does not fully seismically retrofit the building to modern post-earthquake standards. A full seismic retrofit would require extensive underground foundation work that is financially prohibited and beyond the practical limits of the existing structure. The improvements included here provide incremental strengthening, but do not convert the facility into a hardened post-disaster structure. Second area for improvements would be the City Hall and Police Department. For the City Hall and the Police Department, it would be a roof replacement, interior reconfiguration to better support police operations, updated restroom and support areas, remodel and reconfiguration is needed, mechanical and electric system improvements, some interior finishes, paint, flooring, and lighting, security and exterior lighting upgrades, and some technology upgrade allowance in there as well for us to do to kind of get up from 1972 to 2026.
Hey, Chad, can I interrupt real quick, just quick question, because it's not real clear. I can't read the writing on your drawing. For the police department, I know that they are desperately need of a locker room also. Are they gonna be sharing with the fire department, or are they gonna have it? I can't see where that is on here.
It's not labeled and listed out, but there's room within that space to do the locker system. So it would be within their department.
So they would have their own separate over here,
Mhm.
but this would still be the only bathroom?
This would be the bathroom for the police department. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be the only bathroom. Not anticipating putting any bathrooms or any extensions out that way at all. It's kind of living with what we have. The amount of money that we had to spend, that was a decision that was made. So that's City Hall, Police Department improvement, Public Works building on the current site. So the construction of a new Public Works building on the existing campus. Approximate budget allocation of $2 million for that, and a relocation of Public Works operations to purpose-built space. This provides dedicated operational space for Public Works and allows more efficient use of the existing public safety buildings without expanding beyond the current city site. Budget overview for a $10 million total project. So comprehensive project budget, not just construction costs. Remodel projects and active facilities require significant phasing, safety controls, and contingency planning. as well as construction-related costs extend beyond the direct material and labor expenses. So we have the major cost categories there. Hard construction costs, about 4.7 million. Direct construction work, including structural improvements, mechanical systems, interior remodel, roof replacement, building upgrades, and construction of the new public works facility. Construction-related costs, 3.5 million, includes general conditions, contractor overhead and profit, required bonds and insurance phasing, and temporary work. Contingencies, escalation allowances, and construction management. There's also some money in there to handle temporary space for office as well. Soft costs of 1.5, including some architectural engineering design, permitting, inspections, legal services, bond issuance costs, professional services, and built-in interior casework and cabinetry necessary to complete functional phases. Budget reflects industry standard contingencies appropriate for a remodel and phase construction project. And remember, we're going to be, this is a city project, so prevailing wage is applies to this project, which is more expensive than what somebody just having something put together on their own with a contractor would pay. Prevailing wage is about 1.5 times more expensive. Why this approach? Earlier concepts explored larger replacement facilities at a significantly higher cost. This plan focuses on improving existing buildings and constructing only what's necessary within a $10 million budget. And what this project does not do, does not create a fully seismic hardened post-earthquake facility. It does not eliminate earthquake risk. It does not expand city services. And it does not exceed $10 million in total authorization. It improves safety, functionality, and operational space within realistic financial limits. So to tie it together, the big picture, this project addresses the identified facility deficiencies, improves working conditions for fire, police, and public works personnel, and city hall. Provides a new public works facility on the current site, extends the useful life of existing buildings, and stays within $10 million ROC. Practical, financially responsible solution of the long-term facility needs. But before I go on to the obligation bond, the term and cost comparison, is there any questions about that first sheet?
Will our council chambers remain the same size?
Yes. Most likely, unless we can figure out another way. Except the idea is if we do a little bit of remodeling on the kitchen area, we should be able to pull that wall back. And then thus it would make that space available to some folks that are sitting in the rear space.
So more seating would be possible.
Possible, yes, with the removal of that part of that wall up into where the bathrooms are. So it'd be about where that picture is. If we could open that up. Any other questions so far? Okay.
I think you're gonna have a post here.
Yeah, that's likely.
I think that's a grand wall.
So the next page is the city of Gearhart, the $10 million general obligation bond term and cost comparison. These interest rates were based on January 29th pro forma. This is modeling an A rating plus cushion. All options finance the same $10 million project. So option one, a 10-year term, cost per thousand is $1.38 on assessed value. The total interest paid on the $10 million would be about 2.955. So the all-in cost would be about 12,395. True interest cost is about 3.787. Final maturity of 2036. So the overview on that is the lowest total interest paid, highest annual property tax impact, in fact, it's this payoff. Option number 2, the 15-year term, cost per thousand is 96 cents per thousand. Interest paid about 4.675 million. Just over 14 million total. True cost of 4.266. The final maturity at 2041. So the overview of that is a moderate annual property tax impact and balanced overall interest cost. Option number 3 is the longest term that we calculated. 20 years, cost per thousand would be 77 cents per thousand. Interest paid would be almost 7 million. Total debt service, all in cost, just 16.7. True interest 4.798, and maturity in 2046. Lowest annual property tax impact, highest total interest, longest repayment period. The next page is just an example of annual property tax impact based on assessed value, not market value. And again, for most people in town, assessed value is about 50 to 60% of what their real market value is. So assessed 300,000 on the 10-year would be 414, 15, 288, and 20-year $231 per year. I won't go through the rest of them, but I think all that information is there on a $400,000 and $500,000 home. And again, property taxes in Oregon are calculated on assessed value, not market value. Assessed value is typically lower than market value and is determined under Oregon's property tax limitations. They're based on assessment value, which appears on your property tax statement. So there's a comparison snapshot. So in the big picture, it's pretty simple. Shorter term, higher costs, lower total interest. Longer term, lower costs, higher total interest. And all scenarios are funding on the $10 million project. The last page in there. Oh, any questions on the taxes? Costs. Last page in there is just a very basic layout that we've been working with the FFA architecture. It shows that the building remains in its same shape. I'm looking at the fire station right now. The only thing it would be is we would be taking over the public works facility and behind. It's currently the water shop and reconfiguring that. We're not sure that this is the configuration that'll work. There's more information and work that needs to be done, but that was an idea that was thrown out to maybe make their meeting room a little bit larger. It also shows a block where the public works building would go potentially, if that's the decision and the choice that we make as we go through this. And then it shows also the city hall building, and I'm sorry that's hard to read, but it shows some basic upgrading to the police section of the building, which is just beyond that door. And some very basic things with the city hall itself. There's a potential we might be able to move a wall a little bit to give more space for staff up front. But that's yet to be seen. So that helps cut through all of the information that we have. There's a little bit more detail in the packet that we provided the public. That's just to make it a little bit more simple to understand.
Chad, looking at the fire station on the east side of the building, what are the 4 small spaces? What are they? I can't read the labels.
Decon turnout shop and.
I'm gonna have to look into that other one.
Decon turnout shop.
I think one with the EMS storage.
EMS.
Yeah,
That's where the existing meeting room is, correct?
yeah. That's just an idea. There's no solid plans on that. We've got some reconfiguration ideas to come up with. It might be moving those items to where the meeting room is and leaving the meeting room where it's at. We want to increase the size of the kitchen a little bit. That's something that we use quite a bit over there and could come in handy in the future for whatever else Gearhart can throw at us as far as emergency needs. But nothing, not a huge amount of change. There would be, you know, the thought process is on the west side of the building where the two larger vehicles are in that depiction. That we could increase the size, not increase the size, but better utilize that space to be able to take in those two larger vehicles. So that Gearhart has a future for potentially buying fire engines that are not custom. What that would take is us moving the turnouts. The turnouts are currently, you know, where all the firefighting gear that the firefighters wear. It's where those trucks are, the back end of them are, but if we were able to move that around, we would be able to set this building up for the future as well. All of these things that we're putting in here and the way that we're constructing it, that gives us lots of flexibilities for whatever the future might bring Gearhart Fire. In regards to its volunteerism, or if in the very distant future, we end up having to go pay 1 year, then, or excuse me, yeah, with pay group, that this structure would work for that as well.
Okay. Anyone got any questions?
I do.
I'm wondering where you designate the break room. Like, I know you got the kitchen over here in the fire area. And we have one existing, and then we've got the coffee thing here that's considered a break room. Do we need two? And, I mean, I'm concerned about project scope creep, of course, but if there was a way that we could get a public bathroom put into this project, we could get rid of a porta potty, which costs us money every single month. Not saying you don't need it, you do. But that would be my only comment.
Kept it pretty tight with the budget that we were looking at, but as we go through the planning process, and depending on how that shakes out, there's a possibility that that might be something that we can look into. It depends on the contingencies that we have available and what we find when we go to work on that fire department. And if there are some contingencies in for that as well. Pretty sure what's going on in the walls in there, but we're not necessarily sure if there's going to be any major repair with that. So once we get through and get some more information, start looking at that, that might be able to be a small change that we make. I'll put that in the notes, and then we'll track that moving forward as we go through this process.
Can you address the limited wall improvements?
Yeah, so we're not sure exactly what's in the walls of the fire station. We do know that they're hollow core gray. We don't believe that there is any rebar in there, although we'll do some more investigation will be close. The limited wall improvements are really to take care of the exterior of the wall, to fill in some of the cracks and gaps that have formed over time through settling and deterioration, to reseal the outside to make sure that in weather that it is tight and that it lasts. It, for structural seismic, we don't want to, the budget would not include replacing the entire loop system, but everything above the joists would be able to be approved and redone. And in that period of time, we would take and tie in the ceiling to the roof or to the walls. So that it's a little bit more seismically sound. There's a potential once we get things open and depending on how costs go. But really it has to do not necessarily the cost, but whether or not there's access to be able to get into those walls and do some additional filling, which would be nice. But the truth is that the underground, the soil that stands on is not stable. So even if we were able to put solid walls up and through there without the stabilization of the ground underneath it, that would only help so much. So looking at the grand scope, that was put off, but there's really not a lot of strengthening those walls that's available on this project. If you look, yesterday I was at a doctor's appointment and I was looking at the Columbia Memorial Hospital site. And they've had to do all of this type of work because they are critical infrastructure and replacing their building. They have spent millions of dollars doing underground work, and I believe that their distance that they had to go down was 60 feet as well. It's quite a robust system. So with that underground, the way that they're building that building and all the steel and structural work in it, it'll work together to hold together as best as possible, depending on what type of earthquake happens. In this case, we will get into those benefits without doing the underground work, which is very expensive.
Is addressing the septic or replacing the septic, was that included in this or?
No, tying into the septic is included in it, but we have an adequate septic space now. And this would keep it in that position and just continue to tie into that. There's a possibility that we might need to extend our septic with the additional bathrooms. And that space is available to us to do, and there is some contingency in there for that.
Any other questions for Chad?
Well, probably goes without speaking, but I take it all the department managers or chiefs have approved of this concept and it's on that.
They've looked in through this, they've been involved with this in every meeting we've had with the architects. And they have, they know where the community stands and they're ready to move forward with a project like this. And they believe that it would be adequate to take care of the firefighter and police safety as best as we can without doing a full seismic rebuild. So, yeah.
I just have a couple of comments. This clarification for people who are listening in or who may not know. And just stop me if I'm incorrect, me if I'm saying something incorrect, because I want to make sure that I completely understand this. So what your proposal is that we ask the voters to approve up to $10 million. If it turns out that the project costs $8 million, then we stop at $8 million and we don't go up to $10 million. Is that correct?
Yes, if we get through the planning and once we're, and the pricing goes out, the amount that we finance is still really up in the air. So this is saying up to 10. And if there's any potential savings between now and then we would only go for what we need.
Okay. So if you start going down this project and there are cost overruns, then those will be handled by reducing the scope elsewhere. The intention is to stick to no more than $10 million and less than that if we can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or reducing the scope or using some contingency as well. There is some contingency in there.
But the contingency isn't more than 10 million.
No.
So it's,
It's all
we're
included.
not going to exceed $10 million.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because that is all we're gonna be authorized under this bond to get, it's only up to $10 million.
Correct.
Okay. The drawing that you have here, people are going to be confused, and they're going to look at that and think that that is the final draft of what they will be buying with their $10 million. And I think that what we need to make it clear is that this is just an initial possibility, but we will not have final documents for anybody to look at. We do not even know what the final plan will be, architectural design will be until after the bond, until we receive the money, and then we hire somebody to do that for us. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And at that point, there might be some adjustment to the scope too. We might say we have to reduce the scope here in order to be able to, we may have to triage that this is most important, this is less important.
Yes.
But our goal is going to be to make sure that our employees are safe, to protect the taxpayers in our city by reducing their liability, protecting their tax money so we don't get sued and there are OSHA problems, correct? Is this going to help us improve our response time in any way? Is this gonna speed things up over there? How is this going to impact the operation over there?
I think for the police and the fire department, it could be said that this will impact their daily lives on operations within here at the city hall complex. They'll be able to do their jobs that they're doing now better. They'll have more facilities available to them to do those jobs. I think also there is some benefit to the community in that we have a building that can better and more adequately protect their safety. And what that will do is, plus some simple remodel, some of the basic remodeling that we're looking to do, I think it'll give the current volunteers some pride in what they have. And it might even help us with finding new volunteers as well, when they see that the community has stepped up and they started to provide them with the tools that I believe they need to do the work that they're doing, from a building that was built in 1958 to what the reality is of today in our call volume. So I think there's value in that, both in bringing more people in, providing better for the staff and the volunteers. Yeah, I do think that this will improve services in the city of Gearhart.
Okay, and then, one more thing, I'm sorry. So hypothetically, this goes to vote and gets approved by the voters. At that point, we can show public support for it, which means that politicians across the state we need on our side are gonna see this as something positive they can do for people that they want to vote for them. So they're more likely to help us find monies to help us afford this. We can get additional bond money that would reduce the amount that we have to go to, or we can add to the project.
Potentially that, and looking at, Paulina's idea about also going out to our community and asking for grants and assistance from them to maybe take care of a small part of these sorts of things, whether or not we have to move the memorial a little bit, or the flagpole, or some other situation. If people see that the community is coming together and we're able to get something done, I would anticipate some people would want to participate in that. The not knowing that's been difficult to get people involved. This community hasn't had a heading on this until very recently. We've done all the work with surveys and elections and all of that. This is one of our last efforts here to try to get this done. So I think people will see this as a positive move forward if it in fact goes through.
Someone else?
I just want to make a comment to Dana's question about response times. I think even having 2 bunks in the new firehouse potentially will impact response times if they're used by people who may be taking call from Warrenton or someplace like that. If they would want to bunk, maybe it's Friday night, maybe there's particular nights when they get more calls, I don't really know, but the potential is there for improved response.
I know that, yeah.
Thank
Not
you.
just
So you
not
asked the
having,
question and I just.
just not having 10 guys lined up to use the bathroom in between calls and having to go one at a time is gonna speed things up. Being able to take their equipment, get it cleaned up and ready to go for the next emergency call out, you know, in a quicker turnaround is gonna be huge. I know that this is gonna make a big difference on our ability to attract quality candidates and retain them so that we're not worried about training, wasting money on training people, new people all the time.
So, not to cut the conversation short, but if there are no other questions, can we go into discussing the length of the bond? Because that's going to be part of the resolution.
Mhm.
And I just want people to be able to get their voices heard about this.
And point of order, we don't have to have a motion on the table or anything like that.
No, it's a resolution. If it was an ordinance, it would be.
If they have the discussion, no, you don't have to have a motion, but in order to finish off the resolution, we're gonna want to insert that information into it.
Okay, well, I lean toward the middle ground, the 15-year bond. And I'm just saying that so we have a starting point. If someone's got a greater desire for one or another, please, you can speak up, but it's, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, I lean towards the 10-year only because the over $1.5 million extra in interest that the city would end up paying is just, it's a lot to ask. Seems like to me, for the citizens.
I'm personally risk adverse. I would do the 10-year bond over any other if it was my house or my money. But the people I talk to were more interested in what's gonna cost them every year. And so I would, probably because of that, stuff my own thoughts of what I would do and go for the 15. And somebody else said 20 to me. So I could go either way.
Okay,
How much did we lose on the water bond?
As far as the interest, for interest,
Are you talking about how much it went down this year?
How much did it go down this year and when's the other one sunset? And what percentage is that as far as taxes on per
Well, it
thousand?
was around 97 cents, and I think is it 41 now?
so yeah, we were at 97, we're approximately 41 cents per thousand.
And that sunsets when?
31.
2031.
We were,
So
when
5 years.
we started that, we were at about $1.27 at the beginning of this process, when we first put together the water treatment facility. This is above and beyond what the taxes are for Gearhart. Again, the permanent rate for taxes in Gearhart are $1.005. Then we were paying $1.27 for the 2 water bonds for the water treatment facility. We refinanced and brought that down a little bit. One of the bonds fell off and we're currently at 40 cents per thousand. And then this would increase it, that additional tax payment, depending on what option you pick.
Well, I can tell you that I'm never gonna vote for 20-year. For a 20-year term, I think that would be extremely poor planning. I would prefer a 10-year. But I think we have the best chance of getting the most voters to agree if we go with a 15-year term.
What's your feeling, Preston?
Well, my feeling is, that, you know, I mean, you were paying on the water bond, so we dropped off, what, 46 cents or something like that. So, I mean, if you take $1.38, you drop 46 cents. You know, from what they were paying. Well, then it looks a little more attractive. If you, I mean, if you do the math in comparison that right there. You know, I mean, if you take that reasoning and you go to the 15-year bond, well, then you're only paying 50 cents.
That would have to
In
be,
addition.
yeah, and it would have to really be communicated because they actually felt the reduction. I mean, they may not have felt it because you get the 3% increase, but there will be a gap. So it will feel like the full impact of the amount, because the other ones already dropped off.
Yeah.
So they did have a year, so it will feel the full impact, even though they did have a decrease.
Well, I wish I could say that would be the last time that the city ever needs to ask voters for more money, but we know that that's just not the case. The city is essentially an extension of all of our homes, and just like you have to do routine maintenance on your home, the citizens or the voters are going to have to, as time goes on, are going to have to put money into the city. I think that if you project out 20 years, the number of things that this city is going to need to do, or the number of times that it's gonna need to ask people for money, the sooner we get it out, get this paid for, the better off we are. But again, if it were just up to me and I was the only voter, I would say 10 years, let's do it. But I think that, I think 15 years is the safe way to go. And if we can find a way to work this property in or be creative in how we spend it, I will be even more comfortable if we can find more room to grow in the future on our real estate footprint.
If we were at the 15-year, would we have an opportunity to refinance if rates went down?
Typically about halfway through. I'm not sure exactly what years, but with the 20-year bonds, we were able to refinance and start 10 years, and that's what we did.
Oh.
Although
That-
the interest rate is fairly decent compared to, you know, I think it's an all-in at 4.6 or 7.8. But we're not sure exactly where things are gonna end up. We put a little cushion into that. When we get around to the actual financing, the interest rates could be lower. Could be a little higher.
And the 10-year bond, did we have an opportunity to refinance that?
I don't think so.
So we'd be stuck at whatever interest rate we can get right now.
On the 10-year, no, we
Potentially.
I believe so. We can look into it, but I think the first time is the 10-year mark.
What is again, let's say we resolve to do this. What is the date that it has to be turned in, and when does the quiet time begin?
This week. If we, if this motion is made to move forward and make option for a term is added in, which is required to be, we'll actually file the paperwork, with the, city, tomorrow. And then the county. And that way we have enough room in case there is any, appeal of our bond title in question. Something that we want to avoid that we got into the last time. Give plenty of opportunity. And at that point, as soon as the paperwork goes to the county, you know, we can't advocate by telling emotional stories and why we need this, but we can stick to facts for the project, where the money is going, why we're spending it on what we are. But that would be almost immediate.
Okay, and then let's say it were to pass, what do you anticipate being the start date for construction?
It was spring of 2027
And how long do you anticipate construction will take?
year.
So that would give you almost a year to solidify the plans, figure out your alternative operational plan during construction.
Some of that has been anticipated in this, but not solidified.
Okay. Because once that happens, you know that we cannot afford any delays. $10 million seems like a lot of money until you get into a project like this, and it will go quick. And we will not be able to afford any delays. Any stupid mistakes will start to eat into this money very quickly.
Okay, I would like to know, do we have 3 saying that the maturity is 15 years? Do I have?
I'll say 15.
I'll sit with you.
I'll say 15. Okay, so can we move on to the ballot title? Excuse me. Because that's another thing that we need to discuss before we pass this resolution. And what is it? Planning Commission's at 6?
Yes.
Okay.
So in your packet, you have the staff report and synopsis for the general obligation bond, the legal analysis and the financial analysis. Have some data, the information that I've summarized in here. And then at the very end, you have resolution 1011. Has the whereas section up top, the now therefore section underneath. That's page 1 and page 2. Page 3, you will get into the meats. We have the caption, the question, and the summary. We have exhibit B, which is a notice that we are required to give. I've worked with Golden, who is representing us from an attorney's office that deals directly in ballot titles, captions, questions, summaries. Also worked with Chad Jacobs, who's here with us at the meeting tonight. He's assisted us in this. We worked with Matt Donahue, Matt Donahue, in regards to the financial end of things. We've been very careful with the caption, question, summary. We've gone through a lot of iterations. The word counts are pretty well brought to the max on everything, so there's no words that we can really add. We can just change at this point.
So you couldn't add up to, under the question, you couldn't add up to 10 million. Or no more than 10 million under the question.
We'd have to remove another word out of that. Or 2 words potentially, but up to.
Well,
Under the summary, it does say, not as easy as to read in there, but under the summary, to say would not exceed 10 million. There's potential for summary. No, I don't know.
Yeah, well, so. A lot of voters are not gonna get into the summary. They're gonna read the description.
You could get rid of and other. You'd say public safety / city facilities. Get rid of 2 words and put up to.
Or you could say. Cities. Facility, public safety facilities. I want to leave public safety in it because I wanted people to be clear that this is for public safety. Because the other problem that you have, a lot of voters think that when they vote for money, they're voting for. To give this money to some other entity instead of giving it to themselves, to their own city, and that they will benefit from it. So you need to leave public safety in there. Is Chad?
I was just gonna say that, you could certainly get rid of the and other. You wanna make sure that you have public safety and, it doesn't have to say and city, but public safety, the words public safety and city wanna be in there since you're having multiple types of facilities. And so if you just said public safety / city facilities and get rid of and other, you could say up to 10 million. And keep it at the 20-word limit.
I'd be comfortable with that.
It makes you more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, as a taxpayer, I want to be clear, that we don't have to spend $10 million. I mean, I don't want you to say we've got $10 million and we've only spent 800,000. Let's figure out how we can spend 200, you know. I wouldn't want to do that.
Okay.
My goal would be to spend less than $10 million.
Yeah, I don't see anything glaring with making that change. And if Chad Jacobs feels the same, I'm confident we can make that change.
Is there anything else that bothers? No? Okay, so Chad, do you want to read the whereases? And go through that paper? Since we have no other questions on the ballot title and question.
I guess I will, Mayor and Council. So this is resolution 1011, a resolution for the city of Gearhart, Oregon, calling a measure election for general obligation bonds. Whereas the city of Gearhart, Oregon, the city determines that it will benefit the city to obtain the authority to issue up to $10 million of general obligation bonds, the bonds, to finance the capital costs described in the form of ballot title attached here as to Exhibit A, the project. And whereas Oregon Revised Statute, ORS Section 287A.050, the city charter and the Oregon Constitution authorize the city to issue general obligation bonds to finance capital costs upon approval by the electors of the city. And where ORS 287A.050 limits the amount of general obligation bonds for certain types of general obligation bonds to 3% of the real market value of taxable property in the city. And issuing the bonds described in this resolution will not cause the city to exceed this limit. And whereas the city anticipates incurring expenditures to finance costs of the project and wishes to declare its official intent to reimburse itself for any expenditures it may make on the project from the proceeds of the bond, which will be issued in multiple series. Now therefore, the city of Gearhart resolves as follows. Section 1. A measure election is hereby called for the purpose of submitting to the electors of the city the question of issuing up to $10 million in principal amount of general obligation bonds to finance the project. Section 2. The measure election hereby called shall be held in the city on the 19th day of May, 2026. Section 3. Pursuant to ORS 250285, the city council approves the ballot title that is attached as Exhibit A in substantially the form attached, but which such changes as the city official defined below may approve, and directs that on this ballot title to be filled with the city elections officer.
Font.
Thank you. Section 4, pursuant to ORS 250-275-5 and 250-285, city elections officer shall publish in the next available edition of the Estorian or Daily Estorian, either way, or in another newspaper of general distribution within the city, a notice of receipt of the ballot title, including notice that the elector may file a petition for review of the ballot title pursuant to ORS 250296, not later than the 7th business day after the title is filed with the the city elections officer. This notice shall be in substantially the form attached to the resolution as Exhibit B, with such changes as the city official may approve. Section 5, pursuant to ORS 254-0952, city directs the city elections officer to submit to the county clerk for Clatsop County, Oregon, a certified copy of this resolution. The ballot title, an explanatory statement, and all other necessary information no later than March 19, 2026, so that this measure may appear on the ballot for the May 19, 2026 election. Section 6, the city authorizes the mayor, city administrator, or designee of either of those officials, each as city official, to act on behalf of the city, and the city official is hereby authorized and directed to prepare the explanatory statement for this measure and to take such other action as necessary or appropriate to carry out the purposes and intent of this resolution in compliance with the applicable provisions of law. Section 7. The city hereby declares its official intent pursuant to Treasury Regulations Section 1.150-2 to reimburse itself with the proceeds of the bond, which may be issued in one or more series, for any of the expenditures incurred by it prior to the issuance of this bond, of the bonds. Section 8. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption. And it shows adopted by the city council this day, 12th of February, 2026, will be signed by Mary Carey Smith and by Chad Sweet, city administrator.
So I just have one question and I'll let you read. So this is on section 4. And it talks about you. It talks about you as the city elections officer. Publish in the Daily A or another newspaper, the notice of the receipt of ballot title, including notice then the elector can file the petition like happened last time for the review of the ballot title to not later than the 7th day after the title is filed with the city elections officer. I feel like I should say county, but maybe not.
So I can answer that if you want. So the way the process works is that when the council passes this resolution, technically tomorrow it gets filed with the city's elections officer, which is the city reporter, who then publishes notice of receipt of the ballot title. And that starts the 7-day period. Only after that period has expired does the city then file it with the county to place it on the ballot. Or we wait if there's a ballot title challenge until the ballot title challenge is finished, and then we file it with the county. But the reason we have to do this now is to get through that challenge period before the March 19th deadline to actually put it on the ballot with the county.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion on the front of the staff report that has council options. We need to include the change to the question up to, but we can proceed with the motion to it as presented with a correction on the question. If someone wants to make a motion.
Does the change in the ballot title, is that a modification?
Yes.
Does it have to be specified?
Yes, ma'am.
And the way I read it is, shall Gearhart issue up to 10 million in bonds to acquire, improve, and address deficiencies in public safety / city facilities.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the council adopt resolution number 1011 as presented, including a bond maturity term of 15 years and change wording on the ballot title under question to read, shall Gearhart issue up to 10 million in bonds to acquire, improve, and address deficiencies in public safety / city facilities, question mark.
And we also need to, selection of the bond maturity.
It was stated in this.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
He said aye.
He said,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it,
Okay.
so okay, so that's unanimous.
Thank you, council. Appreciate your time. Thank you for those that came in.
All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
give you a motion.
The summary is going to be on the ballot, so that's why I think.
Oh, on, you're talking on
The
the
summary sheet is exhibit A, the summary sheet. And that's what I was talking about at the beginning. Okay. Please look at it, because that's what's going to be reading, and if you be challenged. I'll guarantee you, I'll challenge you on it, because I want to know where you're spending money on if you're going out and acquiring facilities.